Guys, this is Gimme Gamer here, bringing you another moveset guide. Today we're going to be talking about Sinistcha. So this is one I've been really excited for a long time. I just haven't got a chance to actually make this video. I've been very busy this month, unfortunately, and I know this is right when Regulation E dropped and pretty soon after the DLC, so I do apologize for that. But I still wanted to give my thoughts on this Pokemon regardless. This is a very interesting Pokemon here. It's got a grass ghost typing. And then also, it has some cool abilities. We'll talk about the other one in a minute, but it's very doubles focused. But its main ability that you're going to be using in singles format is going to be heat proof, which basically just halves damage to fire type moves, and then also halves damage from burn. So that basically effectively gives you just a free neutral hit on the fire typing when you would otherwise be weak to it from the grass typing. So other than that, taking a look at its typing, you have two immunities, which is pretty nice with the ghost typing here. A surprising amount of resists too. We had resist to water, electric, grass, and that's all from the grass typing here, which we know. And then also you have your traditional weaknesses as well. The ghost typing actually kind of cancels out the poison typing too, which is really nice for us. So overall, not too bad of a typing here. It's definitely usable, and when we're talking about terror types, we'll talk about this in a minute too, but mostly just defensive terror types here. This is a very bulky Pokemon. So taking a look at its stat spread, we see a very low hit point stat overall for a tanky Pokemon. It's got a very nice natural 106 defense stat here, and then just 80 on the special defense. So on the special defense side, we're pretty weak. And then we got a massive 121 special attack that we can just kind of rely on for some natural damage here. 70 on the speed as well is pretty decent just for a tanky Pokemon. We're going to be outspeed a lot slower tanky Pokemon, but then we're also going to get outsped by a lot of more offensive, tanky, and then sweeper type Pokemon as well. So just kind of a very neutral speeds here. Not too bad though. And then 508 on a base stat total is not terrible here. So like I was talking about with the abilities, Hospitality is a new ability. It's mostly doubles focused because when you switch in with Sinistcha, that's going to heal back, I think, a quarter of your ally's health. So you really don't have any benefit of running it in singles. It's never going to come into effect. So we're almost always going to be running Heat Proof. And taking a look at the type coverage here, that's just with the ability Heat Proof in mind. So Heat Proof is pretty much the ability you're going to be running on it. It's just kind of a nice neutral ability. Nothing special about it like we were talking about a second ago. As far as items go, you could really run whatever you want on this thing. I also meant to put like Moringa Berry and Key Berry too, just because I think it appreciates a little bit of extra boosting in its stats, especially the Moringa Berry. We do have access to the Calm Mind, so we can kind of boost our special defense a little bit with that as well. A Gob Berry is really nice because as you're trying to set up, I'm a big fan of Calm Mind on this Pokemon, and as you're trying to set up, it's just going to kind of give you a surprising amount of hit points, but your opponent's not going to expect it. So you can kind of sneak that recovery in, and then kind of go on for full recovery from there. And then Citrus Berry, we know what it does. And I have the Colbur Berry here, and that's basically your super effective resisting berry for dark type moves. And I'm a big fan of Colbur Berry on ghost type Pokemon and psychic type Pokemon particularly, that are going to be special attackers, because this allows us to resist a hit from knockoff much easier, and then it's also going to reduce the base power of knockoff. So it can catch a lot of people off guard when they think they're running a good coverage move with knockoff. You can actually live maybe one or two hits, especially on a bulky Pokemon like this. It's really not going to be threatened by knockoff. So I'm a big fan of the Colbur Berry too. And knockoff's being run a lot right now with the addition of knockoff as a TM in the Teal Mass DLC. So as far as viable moves go, this Pokemon has a really cool signature move that we're going to talk about. I think I'm just going to wait to talk more about its moves when we get into the moveset guides. But it's very limited with what its moves are. What moves you see here are what it has access to. It doesn't really have anything outside of that. So you're kind of limited with your offensive options. This Pokemon kind of reads itself. And we're going to talk about a few different things you can do with it that are kind of unique. But for the most part, it's going to be very much just relying on its signature move, staying healthy, being kind of annoying. It has the Strength Staff, which is one of the best recovery moves in the game. It also has some decent setup options as well. So the moveset's pretty straightforward. We'll talk about that in a minute here. Now, as far as Pokemon it's strong against in the metagame, There's not a whole lot that it's great for. It is pretty good against Tainlu because with that String Sap and your signature move, you're able to take this thing down pretty well. It does really well against Milotic, which is seen as a lot as a counter right now to Ursaluna Blood Moon form. So I could see this Pokemon definitely being a good potential partner Pokemon to Ursaluna Blood Moon. It's also very good against Azumarill, but I haven't really been running into Azumarill a whole lot. There's been a decent amount of Breloom, and just being able to not be spored by Breloom is going to be really nice, and then also having that immunity to its fighting type moves is going to be super solid as well. So this Pokemon actually does do very, very well against Breloom, along with just being pretty neutral against a lot of physical attackers, so that's kind of nice. And then also Hippowdon too is one that you see quite often, and this Pokemon can really cripple Hippowdon and do really well against it too. So those are some nice Pokemon that it deals up against. We'll talk a little bit more about kind of some of its matchups later on. I think that this Pokemon overall just does good at being really annoying against a lot of physical attackers by just being able to live some hits with its natural bulk, and then use String Sap to stay healthy and just kind of cripple the opponent, and to maybe either allow you to pivot into another Pokemon that can handle a little bit better, or just be able to take it out with the Sinistcha while staying healthy. As far as counters go, Hydreigon has a super good typing against it because we're so limited with the moveset. So base Hydreigon just kind of comes in and punishes this Pokemon. This Pokemon's also not very specially defensive naturally, so I think that Hydreigon just kind of comes in with this Dark Pulse and puts a lot of pressure on it. Toxapex and Mandibuzz are here because they can just they really like to rely on Toxic to whittle down the opponent, and this Pokemon does not appreciate the Toxic. You land a poison on this thing, and it's really going to kind of just put a timer on it, and you can kind of play around it from there. So I think both of those Pokemon are really good ways to handle this. Clefable is also really nice, just primarily with the Magic Guard ability, being able to ignore just any kind of moves like that. Not getting the burn damage is going to be really nice. Clefable also can run unaware and kind of ignore those stat changes and just kind of put a lot of pressure on us as well. Same thing with the Skeledirge. And then Skeledirge being able to kind of snowball with Torchons and just ignore stat changes is going to be a little bit problematic. Now, we do have super effective hits against its Ghost type moves, but a lot of times Skeledirge are going to Terrasilize if they brain it because it's such a bulky Pokemon. So I think that's not a great matchup for us either. And then Wu Chain, even without Terastallization, has a super good typing against us too that we don't really like to see, and it puts a lot of pressure on us. Not being able to String Sap it's going to be really, really frustrating as well. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and hop into Pokemon Showdown and talk about some movesets for this Pokemon. Alrighty, so here we are in Pokemon Showdown, and before we even talk about any movesets, I actually want to take a look first at its type coverage, because like I said, it's very, very limited with what offensive option it has, and it's really important to understand like what your matchup's going to be. So like I said, Grass type is going to be your main coverage move. You also get access to the Scald, and then also you have Ghost type moves, as your other stab option. So just taking a look at that, if you were running all three of these, and I think this is what you kind of expect for defensive typings, now you see what kind of Pokemon still handle this really, really well. And you don't really have any other options besides Terra Blast to handle these guys. So like I was talking about before, Hydreigon and Wu Chain, going to be very, very good options here. The reason I didn't mention some of these others is just because you don't want to necessarily get burned with some of these Pokemon. Or there just might not be great options too, to counter it just with your typing, your offensive options. But most times what I like to do is I like to run it just with Grass and Ghost. And I want to show you if you're limited, if you're using two setup moves, like Calm Mind and String Sap, and then two offensive options, you're still going to have a lot of Pokemon that are going to be able to resist you here. We see all the normal flying typing Pokemon are very, very common. Mandibuzz as well is going to be one of the ones we mentioned here. So you're still going to struggle a lot with some of these matchups, and King Gambit's going to be another one you don't want to necessarily have that matchup against. But at least with King Gambit, you can maybe land a burn on it and Terrasilize to kind of handle it. But you're very, very limited. And then if we also take a look, if we're running Grass and Scald, let's say, which is very, very common, I think, from a lot of people too, still tons of Pokemon that are going to resist you, right? So I really think that the Grass and Ghost is going to be your best coverage here. Say you're running Follow Play, which I don't really like on this Pokemon. It's very similar, but Ghost is still going to be your best one. And the problem with Follow Play is if you're using String Sap, it's going to actually weaken its ability to do that. So I don't think Follow Play is actually that great of an option on Sinistcha, depending on what moveset you're running. So hopping back into Pokemon Showdown here, this is pretty much my favorite way of running this. With some variations, obviously you can change the item here. I like Leftovers just so you gain that constant sustain. I like the normal Terra type here, just it's a very neutral Terra type, sorry. So you're only going to be weak to the fighting, and that means you're never going to have a fighting move that turn you terrestrialize. That's going to give you that free option to set up a Calm Mind if you want to set that up. And the Calm Mind's very, very good here. It's going to make up for our lower special defense, right? We got some decent natural bulk, just investing in hit points, and our defense is still going to be higher than the special defense. I'm going with the bold nature here just to get more effective bulk out of that 106 defense, because 10% boost on 106 is going to be a lot more than what it is from 80. So just more effective bulk there. That's why we're going with the bold nature. And then we also have the strength sap here. Again, such an amazing move. If you don't know what this does, basically it lowers the opponent's attack stage by 1, and then it heals by the target's attack stat. So against physical attackers, this is awesome. You're going to heal back more than 50% a lot of times. And it's also just going to make them weaker and weaker. And that combined with the Gacha, its signature move, this is basically Mega Drain, but Scald built into the same move, right? It's a 20% chance to burn. It's also a little bit more base damage too with 80 power. And then you also get that 50% recovery rate too, which is awesome. So this Pokemon just loves sitting behind the Gacha. If you can set up some stats too, it's just going to stay really healthy. Going between that and String Sap is going to really, really appreciate that. And then Shadow Ball just to kind of round out your coverage again, like what we were talking about. It's going to give you the most coverage, the least resisted hits against this Pokemon. So I think if you can set up with Calm Minds, especially if you're playing all the way in and going with that Terra, set up some Calm Minds. This Pokemon's going to be really, really frustrating to deal with. It's going to have that natural bulk on its defensive side, physical defensive side. You're going to be boosting its special defense, and then you have the opportunity to lower their physical attack just to kind of handle them a little bit better, right? So overall, I think this is definitely the best way to run this Pokemon. Outside of that, this next one here is like if you want to go full physical wall and not even worry about the special defensive side of things, you can be really, really annoying and deal with a lot of different Pokemon. Now, I went with Terra Bug here for one specific reason, and that's to handle Chain Pal, because Chain Pal loves to run Sacred Sword, and so if you're terrestrializing in a normal, it's just going to be able to hit you with a Sacred Sword, and also be able to ignore any of those stat changes too, right? But if you're going Terra Bug, you're going to resist that still, and if you can just set up an Iron Defense and use Strength Sap to heal all your health back, that's going to feel really, really good. There's also a good chance it's probably going to go for a Dark-type move against you, potentially, or maybe the Ice-type move, I guess, too. But the Colbert that Berry also is there just so that you have other physical threats that are going to be able to come in with knockoff again. You're going to be able to live that really, really well. Drop a Strength Sap or get up an Iron Defense first, and then kind of just play them from there. And then you have both your offensive options in this set are going to have really good chance to burn your opposing Pokemon too, just to kind of make it even more frustrating. If you can land a burn on one of those offensive Pokemon, you can kind of just play back and forth with Sinistcha and another Pokemon in a 3v3 match and just kind of shut them down slowly by slowly. And it's going to be a really frustrating Pokemon to deal with too. So I definitely a big fan of this moveset here, and I am opting for the Scald again instead of a better coverage move, just for that small chance to burn and just be really, really frustrating against physically defensive Pokemon. So, sorry, and I don't know if I talked about the EV spread on this. I'm just going max hit points, max special attack. Actually, you could go max defense if you wanted to do that too. I like a little bit of extra special attack here because you have that good special attack stat, and you're already going to be boosting your physical defense anyway, and then just a little bit of speed here as well. So, now this next one is just kind of showing some other options you have with Sinistcha that might catch your opponents off guard. I think most times they're going to be expecting something with Gacha, some sort of like Gacha and Strength Sap. I think are two pretty much givens on most Sinistchas you're going to be running into. But with this, you're running Trick Room here, Colberberry, again, just living those knockoffs without having to necessarily terrestrialize. And then dropping the Memento, that's going to make you faint, and that's going to lower their attack and special attack by 2 stages, which is going to make things really, really nice for another Pokemon to come in. I think that could partner really well with a really slow Pokemon that's going to appreciate the Trick Room, and then maybe that gives you the opportunity to set up Belly Drum. I kind of like Snorlax here too, just because we have the Gluttony ability, so it's going to allow us to actually heal off a little bit more with the Godberry at half health. So that's going to feel super, super nice, and this Pokemon kind of just sweep for 3 turns. You're going to have three turns of Trick Room where you're going to be the fastest Pokemon, and you're going to be able to sweep. So I thought that could be a really kind of little sneaky way to run this Pokemon that not a lot of people are going to be expecting. And then this last one, just for fun. I always have a really fun moveset here. I'm running Blunder Policy. I don't expect this set to be good either, but I'm running Blunder Policy here. Stun Spore has a really, really bad 75% accuracy, but I thought it'd be kind of fun to make use of the Hex. So the idea is you go Stun Spore. If If you miss the Stun Spore, then now you're going to proc that Blunder Policy, your speed's going to get boosted, and with that 70 base speed, you're still going to be doing really, really good. And so you're going to be able to outspeed the Pokemon the next time, so you try to drop the Stun Spore on them the next time. Then you can maybe heal up with Strength Sap, and then use Hex as your main damaging move, right? That's going to do more damage if they're statused, which is going to be really, really nice. And then maybe against physical attackers too, you're just relying on the Strength Sap and the Matcha Gotcha. Maybe you find a burn, and you're able to take it out and do some more damage with the Hex as well. So just kind of a fun little way to run this Pokemon too, if you want to try something a little bit different. So that's pretty much all I have though for this Pokemon. I mean, it really doesn't have a whole lot of options outside of what I talked about. I really think that's kind of like the best way. This first set here is the best way to run this Pokemon, minus like whatever item you want to run. Maybe you want to run Moringa Berry just to be a little bit better on that special side. So, but yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really hope this helped, and this is Gamer out.